All right, ladies and gentlemen, probably mostly gentlemen with our target audience we got here. We're all set up for episode number 8 of the Setup Podcast. Today we're going to be running through our AFC North preview, something near and dear to our hearts from AFC football. Next, we're going to take a look at the MLB All Star Game rosters, see what we like, what we dislike, fire off some hot takes there, and then we'll finish up here with some NBA talk. A lot of headlines here with free agency, and then just like the immaculate grid we did last week, we're going to try out a new game called the NBA crossover grid.
Yep. A lot of free agency news that happened that we missed out on too, but we're going to hopefully be able to cover most of that today.
Yeah,
so
a lot of ground to cover today, certainly. So starting off here, you want to start with the last place Pittsburgh Steelers on this AFC North preview?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Last place Steelers, yes.
Yeah. Looking at it here, I like that they surrounded Kenny Pickett with another receiving threat in Allen Robinson. It seemed like Pickens was his favorite target last year, and obviously, as Jersey Jerry likes to say, Freiermuth is always open.
Yes.
But Deontay Johnson's kind of fallen out of favor in that offense. It seems like you get Allen Robinson at a discount, plus you hope Najee Harris is closer to what he was his rookie year. I kind of like the weapons that they've surrounded their young QB with on that offense.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm not the biggest Kenny Pickett guy. I know Max likes Kenny Pickett.
Big time Kenny Pickett fan.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure what my opinions are on him. I know they have Big Money Mitch as the backup as well. Maybe we'll see some controversy with that, but hopefully you want Pickett to be your guy. My question for you is, what happened to Najee Harris last year? I mean, I don't know if it was a confidence thing. I know he was coming off of an injury, but he just did not look like himself, and usually behind it, a good Steelers O-line as well.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. Their O-line last year wasn't as good as it's previously been throughout the entire Big Ben era. I mean, they kind of had Kenny running for his life at some points, but they made some draft picks like Broderick Jones to kind of shore up the O-line. And I think Najee just wasn't like... I don't know if it had something to do with the way they were scheming the run game and if it just wasn't super effective, but it felt a lot like DeAndre Swift in Detroit, where he really just wasn't exploding and hitting through the hole like he should be. Like, if you watched a lot of film on Najee last year, it was move to the right, left, back, try and do whatever you can to get by a guy, instead of the straightforward running we saw from him at Alabama and his rookie year in Pittsburgh. I mean, he just wasn't running... Frankly, he wasn't running forward half the time, and I think that was the biggest problem for him last year, which left them kind of fighting to get back in a lot of games. I feel like they squeaked out most of their wins in like 14-10, 14-13 type of comeback victories.
He still did have over an 1,000-yard season, which I overlooked for sure.
He definitely picked it up near the end.
Yeah, his end of the year was definitely much, much better. His receiving was not as good as his previous rookie year, but I don't know. I mean, Najee was an absolute animal his rookie year. I think some injuries caused him to be a little worrisome at times, but I just think consistency was what was the big problem with him. Like, he would churn out 90-yard games and 30-yard games and 80-yard games and 30-yard games, 80 again, then 50.
Yeah. I mean, he's never been a super... I don't want to say never, because obviously he's only played for 2 years. But if you look at his yards per carry, he's never really been a guy who's going to get a huge pop out of any run.
Yeah.
And I think what he benefited a lot from, at least his rookie year, was Big Ben wasn't really making a lot of downfield passes. He was pretty old, so he was more versatile out of the backfield and could at least catch like a swing pass or a screen or something like that to kind of get him going in the open field. And it just didn't seem like they had that going for them last year.
And to your point, all of last year, his longest rush was 36 yards. And other than that 36-yard rush, he didn't rush for a run over 20 yards the entire year. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is with him, like, when you have a rookie quarterback who's trying to figure out an offense, a lot of times you're leaned on as the primary ball carrier, and it becomes kind of difficult to make a huge play when the defense almost knows what's coming, because the pass game's simplified for a young QB. You're not throwing it as frequently or as downfield as often. So it may have just been like a situational thing, but at the same time, like I was saying earlier, I feel like he needs to learn how to run through the gaps and just run straight forward a lot of times, because we can pull up clip after clip of him just like running sideline to sideline, not really knowing where he was going with the ball.
Yeah, and he only broke that 100-yard rush mark one time last year, and it was the second last game of the entire season. So
yeah, he was kind of like, I don't want to say he was like good and then bad. He was kind of just like consistently average throughout the entire year.
He had a very, very rough start to the year. That's for sure. So
yeah. One of the other signings I liked, I think this appeared on our Who You Play For segment last week.
Yes,
Patrick Peterson.
Pat Peterson.
I think that defense is really good, and they're the type of team where as long as they've been around, they'll reload and retool with new talent on that defense. But it's always been a veteran-led defense, and I love what he brings to the table for them. On top of that, they get Joey Porter Jr., whose father was part of the James Harrison linebacker squad for years for those Steelers teams.
Nightmare for Browns fans.
Yeah, especially where he got picked. I mean, early second round. I love the value they get from Joey Porter Jr. You get one of the best tackles in the draft, and then you get an elite corner in the second round.
Broderick Jones is a scary, man.
He's huge. He's humongous.
The Steelers' defense is always just elite, and it's always very difficult to play against, specifically for an offense. Of course, you have T.J. Watt coming in up front, but then you got to Minka to worry about, dropping back. But then now you also mix in Joey Porter Jr., an average age-old veteran of Pat Pete. But
yeah, here's what I'll say about the Steelers. I think they'll finish last, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're in second or third in this division, because their defense has won them 8 games, and Kenny Pickett's elevated them to win a few more beyond that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, me personally, I think it will be very, very close, but I think there's an opportunity for this division to have everyone finish 500 or above.
Yeah, for sure.
But
either 8. There could be.
It'd be hard to do.
There could be 3 8-9 / 9-8 teams in this division.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Moving on here, you want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens?
Let's go to Baltimore. The Cleveland Ravens.
Yes. Yeah. So we see they signed our old friend Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes, they did.
Obviously, you don't really know with Odell what you're getting out of him. Last we saw him play, he was really great for that Rams offense all throughout that playoff stretch and to end the season. I'm sure if Odell has 2 good games this year, they will both be against the Cleveland Browns, if I had to bet my money. But I don't know. I just like that they finally kind of surrounded Lamar with at least some semblance of weapons to help him be successful. I think when you have OBJ, Zay Flowers, maybe Rashad Bateman can stay healthy. Obviously, Mark Andrews has been a pillar of consistency for them for the last 3 years. It takes Lamar out of harm's way a little bit more, where you're not super reliant on him to win games. He's not going to get injured as often, hopefully. They do lose a lot on their defense, though.
That's a big thing I want to talk about.
Obviously, Calais Campbell, Justin Houston, JPP, those are aging guys. They're replaceable. Marcus Peters, Chuck Clark, that's a hit to your secondary. I mean, these even though they're maybe not like as elite as they used to be, this defense has benefited from just having a little bit of cohesion in comparison to a lot of other teams. I mean, on talent, I think there's a lot more talented defenses on paper in the NFL, but the veteran leadership and the cohesion this defense has had for so long has what's been making them such a good defense for the last decade and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, I could point to the Chargers. They have 5 guys on that defense who are bigger names than the biggest name on Baltimore's defense, but Baltimore's defense plays as a team. They have leadership, and they play well. So yeah. I don't like that they lost all these veterans, but at the same time, they're getting younger. Obviously, they traded for Roquan Smith last year, who might be the best interior lineman in the NFL, or the interior linebacker, I should say. Kyle Hamilton had a great rookie year, I thought. And there's some other bright spots on that defense.
Pat Queen, specifically, too. I think that, for me personally, I definitely think the defense did take a hit. Obviously, Houston's not signed as of right now. I don't know if they want him back. From what I just saw, Marcus Peters, I don't think the Ravens are going to pursue re-signing him. One of the biggest signings I think that kind of got overlooked too is Rock Ya-Sin from the Raiders that they just signed. He was their Raiders' best corner last year, and for a very lackluster defense that the Raiders had, he was kind of the bright spot for them, and that just took a even bigger of a hit for them too. I think he's going to play extremely well into Baltimore's defensive scheme. Just always hounding the ball, always running all across the field. Everyone's athletic. Everyone can tackle everybody.
Oh, for sure.
It's going to be very, very tough. This defense and even the Steelers defense, Bengals, Browns, it's like you're playing in the Big Ten. It's everyone has an insanely good defense.
Yeah. I think we've talked about the players a lot, but I think probably, other than obviously signing Lamar to his extension this offseason, the most important move for them might have been letting go of Greg Roman. I mean, that was one of the most stagnant, predictable offenses, I think, for the last 3 years, or at least since Lamar has been an MVP caliber player there. They brought in Todd Monken, who I think is one of the best young coordinators that was on the table and they had a chance of getting. I'm just excited to see a little bit more variety for them because I feel like it's been a lot of the same with the Ravens, and that's ultimately kind of what's given them their hard ceiling, where they're a good team, they're not going to win many playoff games, and they're pretty predictable. So I think weapons plus variety on offense means this Ravens team is either due to explode or implode.
Yeah,
come September. So we'll
definitely.
see.
And I think the running back situation is also a worry for me. They're always having to rotate running backs because of injuries and whatnot. You'll get Gus Edwards starting, Justice Hill starting, or J.K. Dobbins starting based on pretty much who is healthy. I think one of the biggest things now, specifically letting Roman go, when Lamar was at first starting, taking over after the Flacco era, he was still running the offense of what Flacco was, and that was kind of your stereotypical offense of, could be 5 wides, 2 tight ends, whatever it may be, but it wasn't designed runs and things of that sort. And I think that's kind of what led to more of the depreciating health of Lamar, and I think some of the running backs as well, is maybe they went a little too focused on the run. I think obviously it's their bread and butter because with a quarterback like Lamar, he's mobile and everything of that sort. But I think now, if you want to really be successful, that would mean keeping your players healthy.
That's been their biggest problem the last couple of years, is they can't get guys to stay on the field.
And if it takes losing and dropping 1 or 2, maybe 3 more games just because you're not playing your fast-paced offense, just to keep your players a little bit more healthy, and then maybe actually, because they're always in the fight for the playoffs at the end of the year. Somehow, some way, they're always fighting for a wild card spot or something. So, I mean, I think for them, I would look for more of a traditional offense than
that's
pistols.
The other reason I don't necessarily hate the defense getting a little bit younger is because I think they'll stay a little bit more healthy than they have in years past.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they were the most injured team in the NFL last year by far, and it wasn't even close.
And I mean, all of their top weapons on offense are all injury-prone players. Lamar, injury-prone. Dobbins, injury-prone. Rashad Bateman, injury-prone. Odell, extremely injury-prone. Yeah. Mark Andrews, injury-prone.
Although I will say, Zay Flowers is my number one receiver in this draft. I love Zay Flowers.
He's going to be the issue. I seriously think they're battling health. They're battling themselves rather than battling the division this year.
100%.
And that's I think, the biggest thing for them coming in this year. So they got to be a little bit more mindful now.
Yeah. Moving on here to the defending AFC North champions, the Cincinnati Bengals. I know Ethan is maybe the biggest Bengals hater you will run into.
I cannot stand the Cincinnati Bengals. It's for good reason as well. It's for very good reason. They're what we wanted to be. So
yeah, I think the big thing to look at here, they may not have Joe Mixon going into the season, but obviously he looked a little bit older last year. He wasn't great. But the overarching issue for me is you lose 2 former All-Pro safeties in Jesse Bates and Von Bell. You replace him with Nick Scott, who's honestly, he's a serviceable replacement at best.
He's not Jesse Bates.
Yeah, I think you're kind of seeing a little bit what happened with the Chiefs the last 2 years, where they had Mahomes on this contract initially, where they could afford to pay guys like Tyreek Hill. They could afford to have a decent defense. But now you're kind of seeing a lot of these guys who they can't afford to pay more, who are key contributors to either their defense or parts of their offense. And it might end up biting them come this season. I obviously love the Orlando Brown Jr. signing. You got to protect Joe Burrow at all costs.
Yeah.
But I mean, the biggest thing for me, they're the division favorites. I think if they don't win the division, it'd be disappointment.
Yeah.
But if they don't, it's going to be because they didn't address the losses they've had on defense this offseason, and I think it's a pretty glaring issue when you look at what Jesse Bates contributed for them over the last 2 years. He was a top 5 free safety in football. Von Bell, maybe not the same player he used to be. But when you look at that defense, how many guys can you point to and say they've been a consistent player for us over the last 3 to 4 years, and you can count on them every single Sunday?
I mean, yeah, I'm completely right there with you. I think the defense definitely took a huge hit. Front seven's obviously still probably about the same, but the secondary is a big issue. I think for the Bengals, for me personally, I think it's the offensive weapons and trying to literally copy the Chiefs' identity in a way. Outscore your opponents.
They've done it successfully before.
And they have. I mean, they've had some defensive help as well, too. Obviously, you take a little bit of a hit with losing Hayden Hurst, replacing with Irv Smith, who has kind of been a backup tight end his whole career, never really has had the whole spot.
Hayden Hurst was never really all that either.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters. If your tight end can block, and if you're on the Bengals, that's fine, because you've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, who they just re-signed to an extension, and Tyler Boyd, who's a number 2 receiver on any other team in the NFL.
Maybe I'm overlooking how much of an impact Hayden Hurst had, but the running back situation also is what really scares me. Chase Brown is going to have to be the Week 1 starter, who was a 5th-round pick this year. Don't really know much about his history, but I mean, teams are just they're gonna know you're gonna be passing the ball all game. You're gonna be a vertical offense that's passing the entire game. So I really don't know how far that's gonna get you. Well, obviously, probably very far, especially with Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow's Joe Burrow. But I mean, I don't want to say Joe Burrow took a step back last year. He obviously shrunk it together at the end a lot too. But
yeah, I mean, he was 3rd in MVP voting.
So yeah, I think I was more so focusing in on the first couple weeks, and maybe because I'm.
We've certainly got our biases here on the podcast.
I'm a very Bengals biased, but
you'll come to see that here in the next couple minutes.
It's extremely frustrating to watch the receiving core and the team that they've built. I think this team's very good. I don't think they're as good as last year. I'm very curious to see. Still their division to lose, though.
Yeah, moving on here to the hands-down winner of the AFC North. I mean, if you don't have them sweeping this division in a runaway, you're a fool, you're a moron, you're an idiot. I don't know what to call you. It's the Cleveland Browns. I mean, just what more can we say about this team? Elite at every position group. I mean,
elite coaching, elite quarterback,
elite ownership, fans, elite of the. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about the Browns here for a second, because we're big Browns fans here on this podcast. Probably of our 3 teams that our city has, probably our favorite team of the 3. If you know anything about Cleveland, it's a Browns town. But it's a put up or shut up year for the Browns, man.
This roster is loaded. It is loaded.
I mean, you trade for Deshaun, obviously last offseason after all that controversy, and you know he's going to get a suspension. You endure 11 games with Jacoby Brissett, and you kind of just the season is a wash. You know that going into it. So what's going to happen here is we're going to see what we traded for. We're going to see what we gave up.
This is it.
3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks.
And the entire Guardians organizational payroll for Deshaun Watson.
For this guy. I mean, there's reports from training camp that he looks great. He looks better than any other guy that we've had since 1999. But guess what?
Doesn't matter.
Those standards aren't that high.
Yeah.
Being better than any guy we've seen here in the last 25 years isn't too high of a bar to set. I mean, the biggest issue last year was obviously the run defense. You pay Dalvin Tomlinson, who's been a consistent run-stopping tackle for the last decade or half-decade. You bring in Ogronkwo. Thank you, Ethan. Obviously, they replaced John Johnson, who had one of the worst contracts in football, with Juan Thornhill, someone you hope can be consistent for you. Trade a second-round or a high-value pick for Elijah Moore. We've gone all in, so I mean, you can't lose this year. You just can't afford to lose. You simply can't.
I think my favorite of the offseason acquisitions, which I haven't even mentioned, Zadarius Smith.
I forgot about the Zadarius Smith.
The edge rushers for the Browns, I think that 1-2 combo has to be top 5 in the NFL. I think it has to be. No bias aside, Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett lining up on the edges. And then, of course, you got the big boy now, Dalvin Thompson, in the middle. Obviously, I have my questions about middle linebacker. Anthony Walker's coming off of a season-ending injury. Jacob Phillips, I know, is a good, one corner to the other corner running linebacker. Sonny Takitaki, whatever that may be. I think the only blaring gap is that linebacker. But, I mean, bringing in Juwan Thornhill, Grant Delpit obviously took a step up last year. I know people were very critical of him, but I think he kind of helped steady the ship with what was a very lackluster when it came to health secondary. Greg Newsome, I think, also had a fairly decent year.
And you'd hope Jim Schwartz, after getting rid of Joe Woods, will maybe get a little bit more out of these guys.
Yeah.
It kind of just seemed like a lack of effort at some points last year.
I don't want to say I'm confident, but the holes that we had, even dating back to the Baker playoff days, I think most of those are plugged now. I
agree. I mean, you have arguably the best O-line in the NFL. You have arguably the best running back in the NFL. Amari Cooper is still a consistent receiving threat. Last time we saw Deshaun Watson play, he was an elite QB. You have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and corners and safeties now who you hope can give you consistent, reliable coverage. There isn't a part of this team that you can point to when you lose games and say they're not good enough. So, I mean, it's going to come down to coaching and how well it's executed. Kevin Stefanski should have the hottest ass cheeks in the NFL right now. That's what I'm saying. He should be on the shortest leash
this year
out of any guy.
This year is the Stefanski year. I have not seen this depth from this 6 receivers who I think could be viable.
We haven't seen this type of depth in our life.
Cedric Tillman, who we drafted, huge receiver, could potentially be a very good 3rd, 4th wide receiver. Marquise Goodwin, proven veteran, great locker room guy, great speed. David Bell, the rookie, who had a little bit of improvement last year. We didn't really necessarily get him the ball that much, but who we could see. Jakeem Grant will finally be able to return kicks and punts for us. Last year he went down in the preseason with a season-ending injury. I mean, and before that, Grant was a Pro Bowler for kick returns. So, I mean, the stars are aligning. It's all about execution. I think Stefanski is the best scripted coach when it comes to the first drive coming into the first and second half.
If NFL games were one possession each, the Browns would go 17-0, and they'd have 4 Super Bowls by now in the Stefanski era. But guess what? They're not. This guy needs to be on the hot seat.
Njoku.
I forgot about Njoku.
Jordan Akins, the signing, who's an insane red zone threat. You can run 2 tight ends. You could have 2 insanely big targets. Akins, who used to play with Watson in Houston.
I had him in Madden. He was a good card this year.
We drafted O-line depth because we've had some issues with O-linemen getting hurt. Some days we'd lose Wyatt Teller. Jedrick Wills, we know, sure as hell had some injury problems. Yeah. We addressed Andrew Berry had a fantastic offseason. He really did. I think this is probably his best offseason he's had with us, besides drafting, Myles Garrett. Haven't even gotten to Nick Chubb, but the backfield is just primed and ready for another stellar season. Nick Chubb, obviously, from our rankings, we ranked him as the number 1 running back. Maybe a bit biased, maybe not. I mean, the stats are there. No more Kareem Hunt. Jerome Ford finally stepping into that role. Demetric Felton. It's really, we said goodbye to Dearness Johnson, but it's really, really like the stars are aligning for the Browns this year. So they're winning the Super Bowl.
I mean, we're just gonna move on here because we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah,
let's be honest. But there's going to be some sad Wednesday episodes this year. And maybe there'll be some good Wednesday episodes this year.
Yeah, but, I think it's great too because we'll be able to fully digest
a full
the games.
NFL weekend.
Because if we did a Monday reaction, it'd be a lot of overreactions
for sure,
good or bad.
For sure.
I'm all for that.
But, So
It's very good.
next up we have reactions to the MLB All Star Rosters.
Yes.
You want to run it down for us here?
Yeah, so obviously the rosters has been finalized. There's got some guys injured, so there will be some replacements here or there. There's already been a few. So starting us off with the AL, behind the dish we have Jonah Heim.
Don't hate it.
Don't hate that either at all. I think he deserves it. First base, we have Yandy Diaz. He also deserves that.
Deserves that for sure.
Second base, Marcus Semien.
100%.
I think he deserves it. Third base, Josh Jung. Don't think he deserves that.
There's a guy who wears number 11 for the Cleveland Guardians named Jose Ramirez who should be playing at third base.
I get you're trying to give. I know it's the votes and the fan votes, and I don't think Young's been better than Jose. I mean, sure, Josh Jung can make the All-Star game, but starting, it's been a disservice to Jose that he's had to sit, behind Devers and other third basemen for the past couple of years for the All-Star game to start. And you feel like this year is finally his year. Then you just put some rookie in front of him who, at that, has worse stats than him. But his team just happens to end up be winning a little bit more games. Whatever. Then next we have Corey Seager, his fellow teammate. So
I don't hate Corey Seager starting.
That was my prediction when we did our predictions. I think he's just unreal. That's 4 Texas Rangers out of the 5 we've listed.
Yeah.
Next, moving into Mike Trout. Obviously, I don't think you can bench Mike Trout. He's obviously having a down year for Mike Trout standards.
Still a career year for most players,
which is very true. So you can't not start Mike Trout. Randy Rosarena starting. That one shocked me a little bit, but well deserved. Then moving on to Aaron Judge, he'll get replaced. Obviously, I think pretty sure he's out for the year. They just don't want to announce it.
Yeah.
Then obviously we have the MVP for the next decade, Shohei Ohtani at DH. But then, so now, any initial reactions or anything you want to say about the starters for the AL?
I mean, other than Jung, I don't really hate it.
Yeah.
I think, like you said,
we kind of predicted most of them.
Yeah. It was pretty cut and dry. I think the AL was more cut and dry than the NL was for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few names to look at here with the AL reserves. I kind of hate the trend, and they do this in the, not so much in the NBA, but they do it in the MLB and NFL. Maybe NFL doesn't matter as much because who gives a rat's ass about the Pro Bowl? But I hate that they have to get every single team represented in the All-Star game. Maybe the Oakland A's don't need an All-Star. Yeah. Maybe the Washington Nationals aren't deserving of an All-Star. You know what I mean?
I mean, I get it though. It's supposed to be for engagement. It's supposed to be for people wanting to see their players play in the game. I mean, I get it. I don't know. Some of the replacements, though, could be better. I think there should be more so and rely, because I know they have a players' vote as well. I think they should more so rely on the players' vote more than the fan vote.
For sure.
I know that's what matters for what the fans want, but just like the NBA, everyone who's not a Golden State Warriors fan doesn't want to see Zaza Pachulia play in the All-Star game. We'd rather put the best guys out there. So
no, but looking at the reserves, I mean, Julio Rodriguez, absolutely not, in my opinion.
Max is a big Julio Rodriguez hater.
I just don't think he's had I liked him last year. I just don't think he's had nearly a good enough season this year to even come close to being an All-Star. I just think there's better players at the position, to be totally honest.
I like Salvi. I like Salvi making it. I know they needed a representative.
For sure.
He still has some injury problems this year, but he has been hitting a lot of home runs.
Of all the bad teams who got a guy, I feel like Salvi is the most deserving.
And I'm happy they didn't just cop out give it to Bobby Witt either. I'm very happy with Salvi being there. Then obviously Adley deserves to make it. Probably could have been a starter, but who also got announced to be in the home run derby as well. Yeah. We'll give our home run derby predictions and all that good stuff in a later episode. Vladdy Jr. making it. Very bad year for Vlad. Very bad first half of the year. Look for him to hopefully pick it up. He just hit his first home run at home of the whole entire season probably a week or two ago. Not great. And what the hell is Whit Merrifield doing in here? What is he doing?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Okay, he's great. I get he's playing well, and I know there's some room and slack for, bottom of the half order hitters making the All-Star game, specifically when you're a good team. The Blue Jays are floating a little over 500 and are the third or fourth in their division. It's only because Toronto is just voting their entire team into the All Star game. Bo Bichette was well deserving, but Whit Merrifield just did not deserve to make it. I think they should have done the service of giving Wander Franco the initial spot and then maybe getting Whit Merrifield as the replacement. I think people would have maybe been a little less upset about it. Jose Ramirez obviously deserved it. Luis Robert completely deserves that. I know they needed a representative, and he definitely deserves it. He fits the bill. He had a moonshot the other night. Austin Hayes making it first ever All-Star game, huge for him, absolutely huge for him. He deserves that as well. I think he's first or second. I think he's in the top 3 for batting average so far in the entire MLB right now. Jordan, obviously, it's Jordan. I mean, he's injured. I don't even think he's going to play, so he'll probably get replaced. Adolis is leading the MLB in RBIs. I think he could have probably honestly started over Rosarena, to be fair. I don't necessarily get that, but obviously it's fan vote. And then Kyle Tucker was also a replacement, Julio, and then, of course, you have Brent Rooker in there as well. So, I mean, I don't know. Some here or there. It's going to make for a good All-Star game. But
yeah. I don't know. Do we even really need to go over the pitchers all that extensively? I feel like they're pretty cut and dry. I don't hate any of the selections for the pitchers, to be totally honest.
Well, there's 3 names I'd say. I don't know about Sonny Gray making it. I know he's obviously been very good. I think there's probably
I'd say John Gray's maybe been better than Sonny Gray, to be totally honest.
And I'm completely blanking, but his other teammate, not Pablo Lopez.
Joe Ryan.
I would have taken Joe Ryan over Sonny Gray. I think
Pablo Lopez had a really good game yesterday, though.
He did. He also doesn't really get great run support when he pitches, but like your point to giving a guy an All-Star game just because Michael Lorenzen is not an All-Star. He is not an All-Star. It makes no sense as to why he's here. Great for him, but he just does not deserve to be here. I mean, this is supposed to be a supreme, thing for guys to earn. I know some people don't care about it, but
that's a lot of money for some guys too. It's incentive based. You make an All-Star game, you get paid a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously the 4 relievers who probably everyone would have picked as well: Jansen, Clase, Bautista, Cano. Clase has been sucking recently, but he obviously still deserves to be there. But okay, so then Max, you want to lead us off reading the NL?
Yeah, I mean Sean Murphy. I think that was the obvious choice at catcher. I think I may have gone.
You went flawless.
I almost
no.
I don't know if I had Arcia. I didn't have Orlando Arcia.
Okay, so I went flawless. So it's. Or sorry, you just keep reading.
I think we went flawless with the exception of you didn't have Arias and I didn't have Arcia.
But then we both had Soler as well.
We did both have Soler. That's right.
So we picked. Mine was flawless. I gave Albies some praise. Who actually, to be fair, Albies is having an insane year.
He's having a great year.
Like really good year.
And to be fair too, I mean, Luis Arias was floating around 400 for 3 months, and now he's kind of tailed off a little bit. I think he's at like 385 now. So there's certainly an argument for Albies because, I mean, we know nowadays batting average doesn't really mean all that. It's all about OPS, how hard you're hitting the ball, and how often you're getting on base. But we talked about Murphy, Freeman, obviously Arias, somebody hitting the ball that well. You kind of have to give him the nod.
Yeah.
Arenado certainly picked things up in comparison to where he was at.
I also don't think there was a better option at that point.
No. The third base is kind of weak in the NL.
As of right now, it's very weak.
Honestly, left side of the infield's kind of weak in the NL.
Oh, yeah.
Between short and third.
Oh, yeah.
Ronald Acuna is the runaway MVP, I feel like, in the NL. He deserved that spot. Mookie Betts, Corbin Carroll. I love the outfield. That's just a fun outfield, to be totally honest.
How cool is it to be a rookie and make it an All-Star game?
He might come in second place in MVP voting. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I could definitely see it. It's crazy. Going back to the Albies thing, it's crazy that Acuna is so good. Like, Albies is up there for RBIs, and it's so funny because all of Albies' RBIs are just from Acuna hitting doubles off the rip to start the games. It's
absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
And then looking at the reserves, I like Will Smith. Elias Diaz, maybe there were some more deserving candidates than him. I feel like
they needed a representative as well.
It's kind of another one of those things. And then looking at the rest of the reserves, you could basically just field an entire team of the Atlanta Braves. You got Matt Olson, Albies, who we've talked about at length, Austin Riley.
Yep.
Strider, I think, might end up starting the game at pitcher.
Yeah, and Elder also made it.
Yeah, Elder also made it. And then Dansby Swanson, I think he was my selection for shortstop. Happy to see him get the nod, but maybe not the most deserving guy. Go ahead.
I don't even think he was the best on his team. I don't think he was in the best on his infield. Nico Horner had such a better year than Swanson.
Nico Horner has been pretty good.
He has had such a good year, and I know it's Dansby Swanson. I know they're paying him all that money. I would have wanted to see Nico Horner here. I'm a big Nico Horner guy. He's probably my favorite guy in the Cubs.
Yeah. And then looking at Pete Alonso first coming back from injury. He still gets a selection.
Polar Pete, yeah.
Polar Pete, obviously that's just a big name. They're going to want him to be there for the home run.
I mean, he's smashing home runs though. I think he's top 5
for sure. Jorge Soler ends up being the DH like we predicted, and then in the outfield you have Lourdes Gurriel, Castellanos, and I feel like Soto may have kind of made it off just name recognition alone.
I mean, he's still floating over an 850 of an OPS and to 900, and he walks like it's his job. He's definitely had a down year. I know critics are very, very down on Juan Soto. I don't think anyone a part of that trade of the Bell and Soto for any of the players that they've given up with Mackenzie Gore, C.J. Abrams, I don't think anyone a part of that trade has really played that exceptionally well.
No. It's kind of been a lose-lose.
It's kind of like, in a way, it kind of has. Lourdes Gurriel flew under the radar. I think he's really well deserving of it as well, definitely. So
yeah, and then looking at the pitchers here, Gallen and Strider, I think they've been the two best in the NL. Arguably, Bryce Elder's been a little bit better than Strider as of late, though. Obviously, Stroman and Justin Steele for the Cubs have both been phenomenal. We got a little taste of them when the Guardians came to Wrigley Field last week.
Yeah.
Kershaw, still timeless, obviously deserves the nod.
But yeah, he's not going to play though. He's not playing.
He'll be out with injury. And then you were talking earlier today. You don't think Josiah Gray should have been the representative for the Nationals?
Yeah. So I seriously think, I don't necessarily know now looking at it who I would have replaced him with, but I liked Lane Thomas a lot more.
I got a chance to watch him play yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. We could talk about that game too after, but he's had over an 850 of an OPS. He's been a steady guy for the Nationals. If you have to give a guy a nod on that team, he's been clear. He's got a higher OPS than Dansby Swanson. He's got a higher OPS than I think a good amount of the guys that are on the list of reserves. I really think he would have been a very, very good option for them. But I just don't think Josiah Gray obviously deserved it. Now I think obviously with now relievers, you have Alexis Diaz with Cincy, who really realizing it's now they only have one selection from what it seemed to be a good team. Obviously you can't give it to Ellie. Spencer Steer could have been pretty deserving of it as well. India's had a really good year. India's had a really good year. Then obviously Hader, who deserves it. Devin Williams deserves it. Camilo Duvall, who deserves it. Then David Bednar, obviously. I don't know if you guys saw the clip of him leaving a couple of beers and a note for Clayton Kershaw in the Dodgers dugout, thanking him for giving him the extra room to be an All-Star selection because Kershaw's not playing. So just a cool story about that.
Yeah. But the Giants only have one All-Star selection?
So yeah, I mean we talked about it. It's been so widespread good baseball, good team baseball for them.
Yeah.
It's not been a specifically good time because I mean the starting pitching, no one's exceptional. The hitting, no one's exceptional. Maybe J.D. Davis could be in there. Maybe Thiago Estrada could be in there. Duvall's nasty, big MLB The Show card user of him as well.
For sure. But you got anything else in the All-Star game before we give our predictions for the Home Run Derby next week?
Yeah, so I mean I still think it's going to make for an entertaining game per usual. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of a higher scoring game than last year, but obviously it's the premier pitchers, so maybe we'll see. Hopefully next year it'll be a little bit different, but I digress.
Yeah. A lot to talk here about NBA free agency. We'll probably have to pick and choose here a little bit.
Yeah, lots.
But
a lot of stuff.
We're going to kind of move here chronologically. We've talked about Brad Beal, Porzingis, CP3, some of the earlier trades. One of the first day one moves I want to talk about is Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, just kind of the Lakers in general. They bring back Rui. They bring back Reeves on both really good deals, I feel like.
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell as well. And then you go out and get Gabe Vincent, who's been
cheap too.
On 3 years, $33 million. Mm-hmm. He could end up being your starting point guard if D'Lo doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
Taurean Prince, who's a phenomenal corner three-point shooter, the type of guy you want to surround LeBron around.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Reddish, a guy whose potential is maybe a little bit untapped yet. And then obviously Jackson Hayes from the Pelicans, who hasn't really shown a lot as of yet. But one of the things about the Lakers, I feel like, is as much as LeBron-centric teams tend to like trade away picks and young talents to bring in better veterans, I think the Lakers lately as a franchise have kind of proven a pretty innate ability to take in some of these maybe younger guys who have played in the league for 2 or 3 years, and they kind of transform their career and get the most out of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, you saw it with Rui Hachimura. Mm-hmm. You saw it with Troy Brown Jr. Vando was obviously very good for them in stretches this year. I think they could end up getting the most out of a guy like Cam Reddish, especially with LeBron facilitating that offense, which it doesn't really look like they have a true point guard who's going to be a pass-first player. If I had to imagine, Austin Reeves will probably handle the ball for them the second most outside of LeBron. I really like what they've done in free agency this year.
I think they are the biggest winners of free agency so far. I mean, they obviously also hit on draft picks with Hood Schifino as well. I think the depth that they have is crazy because, I mean, I think they obviously, and especially in the LeBron era, each offseason they've tried to do a very good job of getting that bench depth. And it's usually been older guys.
I almost feel the opposite, though. I feel like they've kind of gone all in with big splashes, and now they're kind of finally getting back to their like COVID team where it's super deep and you have a lot of reliable options.
Yeah, and I think just the youthfulness is a good thing to see too. Putting those kind of guys out there for LeBron and for AD, I liked getting Reeves back too as well. It doesn't look like your stereotypical NBA player, but he's a killer. Yeah. He's definitely a killer. I love what the Lakers are doing. Rob Pelinka is just a great job.
Yeah, I think if you're a Lakers fan, anything short of a top 5 finish in the West would probably be disappointing.
Yeah,
but then go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say we're gonna see on social media them have a skid and they're in 8th place and it's gonna be like, oh
yeah. Moving on here, the next team I want to talk about, probably the biggest spenders throughout all of free agency. The Houston Rockets bring in Fred VanVleet on a 3-year deal worth up to $142 million. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Dylan Brooks gets paid 4 years, $80 million, $20 million average annually.
That's absurd.
Just give me some of your thoughts on those two deals.
I think it's going to be them sailing into the night sky when it's foggy outside and there's no direction as to where they're going. They're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and hope some stuff sticks.
Yeah,
I mean you got your young talent. They're long, they're athletic, they can jump. I think maybe bringing in Dylan Brooks could be very valuable, but I mean, I don't know.
Here's my thing. It feels like for the last 2.5 seasons since James Harden's gotten dealt, it's kind of felt like an AAU team playing in Houston. You have so many young guys who are kind of directionless. Steven Silas proved to not actually be the guy for them. I like at least that they're making a step towards winning and building some sort of identity in comparison to the last couple of years where it's been kind of like aimless, directionless basketball. And not only basketball, but just from a franchise point of view, I think Fred VanVleet is the type of guy who can come in and at least provide veteran leadership. And even if he's not a efficient scorer from all 3 levels, he's not obviously the type of guy who's going to make you a contender from day one. But I think him and Dylan Brooks at least give you identity, right? Say what you want about Dylan Brooks. Say, go learn Chinese, buddy. You're playing in Shanghai, whatever it might be. He's still an all-NBA level defender. He was going to get paid regardless, even though obviously the Grizzlies they wanted to part ways with him. But I just like that they're making moves to surround these young guys who could maybe be of some like influence and provide veteran leadership to begin with. Because you have all this talent. I mean, I think Aman Thompson is arguably, outside of Victor Wembanyama, may have the highest ceiling in the draft. Jalen Green has proved to be an elite young scorer. Şengün just provides that offense with even more layers. I mean, Jabari Smith came on at the end of the season last year. Tari Eason is a multifaceted player. You get Cam Whitmore at phenomenal value with the 21st pick in the draft. It's not always going to be a splash move or a major tank trade. Sometimes you just got to make steps towards the right direction and just build and build and build. And I think that's what they've finally done here for the first time since James Harden's been in town. They've taken an offseason to actually build on what they have instead of just accumulating more things. They've finally taken a step. And that's where I stand with the Rockets.
Yeah. No, I definitely think the future's looking way brighter in Houston, that's for sure. I just think it's going to be a very difficult job for Ime Udoka to, guide through and put together these lineups and figure out how to harness this talent correctly, because there's a lot of it, like you said. So
yeah, for sure. Next, you want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks, one of the more active teams in the playoff or in the offseason this year.
Yeah, so I think they're doing a good job of surrounding that depth. I know they kind of took a hit with the whole Kyrie Irving deal. They just sign and trade for Grant Williams, who
I don't hate that. I mean, he's a quality role player. I mean, obviously, Grant Williams will always be memed for saying, I'm going to make them both.
That was fantastic.
But he was an elite shooter on that team at some points in the year. Mm-hmm. I like they brought back Seth Curry as well. I think the combination of Dwight Powell, who they signed on a pretty cheap contract, obviously Derek Lively was their draft pick, and Rashawn Holmes, you have at least some sort of rotation at your big man, whereas last year it felt like they couldn't rely on Christian Wood. Their other big men weren't healthy. I mean, JaVale McGee's 38 years old trying to play quality minutes for a Mavericks team that wants to contend. It seems like between bringing back Kyrie and maybe some of these other role players, they've ensured quality depth in a roster that's not going to plunder and be a 10 or 11 seed like they were at the end of last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's a little bit more of a direction. Last year was an absolute blow-up. But they've done a very good job of getting these key pieces surrounded around Luka. They re-signed the Frenchman Dante Exum. Don't know what he's going to do, but good to see him back in the league. Yeah, I guess.
The next team, just looking at some of the moves that are made here, the Indiana Pacers. Yes. I don't hate the offseason they had.
Bruce Brown.
Yeah, Bruce Brown. I mean, I saw the stat on Twitter the other day, and it kind of, I don't know if they just lucked into this or if they have one of the best analytics departments in the NBA. Who do you think the three most efficient transition players are in the NBA?
Giannis?
No.
Okay, well, Bruce Brown's obviously one of them.
Bruce Brown.
Role player or starter?
One of each.
Okay. LeBron?
No.
Okay.
Bruce Brown.
Ja?
Tyrese Halliburton, and Obi Toppin. The three most prolific.
Feed me Obi Toppin.
Based on advanced metrics, those three guys are the best transition players in the NBA.
Feed me Obi. Feed me Obi. Feed me starter Obi.
I love the roster that they built. Obviously, like we talked about the Rockets, it's not always like a big splash move that's going to move you into contention. But I see them as a 7 to 10 seed, depending on where their chips fall, injuries, all that sorts of stuff. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has proved himself to be one of the best young point guards in the NBA, I should say. Bruce Brown was probably the best bench player for a championship-winning Nuggets team last year. Mm-hmm. And Obi Toppin is hungry and just waiting for some semblance of important minutes to play.
I'm telling you, he's going to explode next year. I really.
I like that core a lot. Halliburton, Nembhard, Hield, Toppin, Turner, Bruce Brown. Who else do you have on that roster? T.J. McConnell is a pretty good defender.
I'm
blanking right now.
Benedict Mathurin, too.
Benedict Mathurin, third place in Rookie of the Year voting, almost the sixth man of the year last year.
And think about this. You have the maestro who is dishing out these passes and these assists, too. I think Halliburton tweeted himself when the Obi Toppin deal went down. he said the Mahomes thing. He's like, "F it, Obi will be up there somewhere."
Literally.
So he's just gonna. It's just gonna.
I like what the Pacers have kind of done on the margins of free agency. They've found value and paid some guys with the money that they have to maybe not enhance their roster like one guy in a big way, but they've placed kind of a few pieces here and there to help Tyrese Haliburton succeed and make them a better team around the margines, if that makes sense. So I like their moves a lot.
I like them a lot too.
They're definitely one of my other winners outside of the Lakers.
Definitely.
Maybe not lastly, but one of the last teams we'll look at here, the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, you bring in Bradley Beal. When you're paying him, D-Book, KD, and Ayton, there's not much you can do. But one of the contracts I like the most as far as just like what you're paying for him is Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
They brought him in a few days ago. Obviously, there's not much you can do. There's not a lot of money to go around. But
I mean, obviously, I think defense is going to be a big issue for them.
I mean, definitely. Defense is always going to be an issue when you're starting Devin Booker, KD, and you don't really have a lot of like quality role players to play defense. But they brought in a former Ohio State player, Keita Bates-Diop, as well. It's
KBD.
really, it's going to be 4 All-Stars and then some plumbers and mailmans there for the Phoenix Suns. But I at least like that they brought in Eric Gordon. Anything else you got for free agency?
Suns are the Suns. Cavs, Max Strus.
No, that's right. I almost forgot about
Georges
our Cavs.
Niang, yeah.
And they bring in Karis LeVert. They sign him back on a decent deal for 2 more years. I don't hate it at all.
And this is going to be a very... We shouldn't even give name to this because many signings of this nature with other teams we won't mention. Ty Jerome also was a pickup by the Cavs, and he has been in the Warriors shooting lab for the last few years. And let's just say, I may be excited if he's seen his backup point guard next year.
For sure. Outside of that, I don't know how much we're going to talk about this just because it's always the same song and dance when it comes to these trade requests. Damian Lillard, I don't know if that trade's getting done anytime soon, considering, for one, the Trailblazers have all the leverage in that. And on top of that, any of the rookie assets that the Heat have signed, like Jamie Jaquez, they can't even trade him for another 30 days since he just signed his contract. It's going to be a while before we see any type of deal get done there. And then on top of that, James Harden, I refuse to even give him a platform. James Harden, you're the scum of the earth. Just stay with one team at a time, for the love of Christ.
We just got a Woj bomb. More information on the Suns-Wizards deal. The Suns traded the Wizards 6 future second-round picks in the Bradley Beal deal. So,
yep, those will maybe one of those guys will see NBA minutes. But moving on here with all the movers we've had in the last couple days, I mentioned it briefly earlier. We're going to be playing a game pretty similar to the Immaculate Grid. It's called the NBA Crossover Grid. So, like we said on a few episodes ago, basically how it works is you've got teams or some type of stat, and you basically have to match up each column with each row. So looking at the
let's go one and one. See if I need help,
you don't want me to just rattle them all off at the same time.
No, because it's for the last 2 seconds.
Yeah. Ethan certainly is better at the baseball Immaculate Grid. My strong suit certainly the NBA. But looking at the rows here, it's Pistons, Clippers, 76ers. And the columns is going to be Warriors, Hawks, Spurs. Do you want to go first here?
Let me go first and knock off one I see automatically. Top left square. Just moved there. James Wiseman.
James Wiseman.
That's going to be my pick.
All right.
Okay.
My turn here?
Yes.
I'm going to go Clippers, Warriors, Baron Davis.
Whoa, okay. Sixers, Warriors. And you can correct me. I may be wrong here. Mike Dunleavy? I think he was on both.
I know Mike Dunleavy played for the Bulls.
I think
he's the GM of the Warriors. I was just going to say Andre Iguodala.
Let's go with that one.
Look it up there just to make sure. Maybe you were right. But Andre Iguodala gives us one for sure.
Yeah.
Next year, I will go Clippers and Hawks, and I'll go Magic City, Lou Williams.
Okay.
Any news on our boy Mark Dunleavy?
So he played for Golden State, and he did not play for
Well,
Philly.
good thing we went with Andre Iguodala.
Good thing we went with Andre Iguodala. Okay. So for going for my next one, see, this is where I run into an issue. Okay. Clippers and Spurs. Oh, Kawhi Leonard. Oh my God. That maybe I was going for a little bit of rarity, but that one's a little.
I'm gonna rip right here. 76ers Hawks. Al Horford.
Okay.
You got anything for us with the remaining 3 squares?
Okay, so let me think. Pistons, Hawks. Who could have gotten moved? Blake Griffin wasn't on the Spurs ever, was he?
No.
LaMarcus Aldridge was never. Oh, was Lamar? No, LaMarcus was never on the Sixers either, right?
No.
Okay.
Do you want me to steer you in the right direction
Yes.
with these ones? There was a guy in the Wiseman, Gary Payton Jr. deal who was traded from the Pistons to the Hawks this trade deadline. Plays small forward.
Was it Bogdanovich?
No.
Wait, Ish Smith.
No.
Ish Smith's been on like 18 teams. I think he would work.
He might, but I'm thinking of another guy.
Okay.
We're looking for Sadiq Bey here.
Yes, you're right.
Yes.
You're right.
You got anything for Pistons Spurs or 76ers Spurs?
Pistons Spurs.
I got them both, but we'll see if you
76ers,
can.
Spurs.
We'll see if you can get there.
Okay. 76ers and Spurs. Was Patty Mills on the Sixers?
No. Another Spurs shooter for many championships. Well, 2 championships. Played with LeBron, too.
Oh, my God.
Won a championship with Kawhi as well. Won 2 championships with Kawhi, but on 2 different teams.
Oh, my God. Which one is easier, do you think, in your opinion? Is there a gleamingly obvious one?
Well, with the hints I'm giving you, there should be. What is, let me ask you something. What does blue and yellow make?
Blue and yellow?
Yeah.
Like the colors?
Yeah, what does it make? Combine blue and yellow, what does it make? That would be Danny Green. Danny Green we're looking for there. And then, should I just do Piston Spurs for us here?
Yeah, you can finish this off here.
Yeah, we're looking for the worm, Dennis Rodman. And that's going to be all year. Certainly a group effort here for the NBA Immaculate Grid. But, yeah, that's about all here.
That goes to show you Max's knowledge with the NBA Grid is far more advanced than my knowledge with the MLB Grid. But how did I miss Rodman? And oh my goodness, that is just absurd to me. Okay,
yeah.
So then now,
wrapping up here, we're just gonna finish off with something bad, something good, something bad here, real quick. You want to start it off?
Sure. So I would say something good going on, obviously, other than this podcast. I would just say the gym. Max has been an avid gym guy for, I would say, probably his whole life. I'd say fairly good amount, not so much consistently, you could say, but I would say just going to the gym very consistently now. Something bad, I'm going to keep saying the Guardians until something good happens, so
no,
we're going to go
totally
with that
fair.
one.
Something good for me, I was in D.C. this past week.
Yes.
Was able to catch a Reds-Nationals game.
Beautiful.
At Nationals Park. Great ballpark. Funny enough, there's one little slit in the stadium where you can see the Washington Monument through it, and I was sitting right there. So that was really weird.
I know someone who lived in the apartments that overview the stadium.
Yeah. So I also had a chance to play some golf in D.C. That was pretty cool. Good. Got to see some cool stuff from there.
Did you shoot well?
I shot. It was par 36, and I shot a 46. So
okay. Oh well. A little bit of a step up from some of the recent
outings. From some of the recent outings, for sure. It was, it was nice. I was by myself, so I didn't have like the.
I don't know why you think there's pressure. I don't know why you think there's
Ethan
pressure.
Ethan will tell you. Whenever I golf, I just I overthink every shot and put the weight of the world in my head. So it's just.
It's like he's putting for a $20 million purse.
Yeah, it's like I'm putting for the Saudi live bag or something like that. But something bad. I don't know. Life's been pretty good recently.
I agree. It's
So
kind of hard for me to find a
yeah,
bad.
maybe we'll save. Well, something's got to be bad. Something bad would be that the Cleveland Browns start to play football again in 70 days.
That's
and
true.
I'm not looking forward to that. So
That's true.
yeah.
That's very true.
Anyways, that's about all we got for you today on episode 8 of the Setup Podcast. So we will be seeing you this Friday, and more powering down for now.